Hi, welcome to the MKU interview series. I'm Christian Mackey, the Innovation Hub Manager, and today I'm speaking with Matthew Caffrey, Senior Lecturer at MKU. So Matthew, do you want to tell the audience a bit about your background before you started working at MKU?
Certainly, Chris. Well, I was spent 42 years in industry prior to joining MKU, or prior to joining Cranfield actually, and I worked in electronics, manufacturing to a great extent, but we would design and manufacture products. So I worked for a number of different companies, large and small. So worked for largest probably was BAE Systems, and smaller than just one and two man companies. But across a range, Siemens was another company. So you can imagine everything from PLCs to SCADA systems, and we use them in an array of varying different types of applications. So everything from coal mining through to transport, through to craft controls. So it's been quite a spread if I actually look back, and it was really enjoyable. I liked it. So we did lots of single board computers. So we were doing Internet of Things type products long before anybody had the phrase Internet of Things. So we often refer to them just as connected devices, which was a name I thought was more suitable, but it was one of those things that I was never going to win. I think the rest of the industry called it Internet of Things. So we're used to it now.
Brilliant. And then you came to Cranfield 7 years ago?
7 years ago, yes. So I had finished in industry. What had actually happened, the company I was working with, we sold the company to a Chinese company. I stayed on for 2 years under the Chinese ownership, and then I left. And at that time, I wanted something of a change. And I was fortunate, a role came up here at Cranfield University, and I applied and was successful. So it's been brilliant to, at this stage of your life to get that new chance and a new career was wonderful for me. I've really enjoyed it.
Excellent. And then you've joined MKU now. So how did that come about, and how you approached to join MKU?
Right. Well, I was working within manufacturing, and I was asked to help out with one or two things with MKU. So I was helping, and I was sharing my time about 50-50. And earlier this year, I was asked, would I consider coming over full time? And frankly, the challenge of what MKE is offering was just too appealing to turn my back on it. I loved my time in manufacturing. I had a great time with a great set of people, but to come and work in a new venture such as MKU, something, I could understand if everybody applied for this particular job, because it is the start of something that will be huge, and we're all very excited about it, and we're all desperate for it to succeed.
Excellent. And then thinking about that, so as you've joined the team, you've met everyone, what were sort of your first impressions of MKU now you've started working there, and sort of the approach to learning in particular?
Okay, well, the approach for me, I really liked that everybody was excited about the future, and we're all thinking about how do we make this work, because when we started developing courses, we had no students to work for. So we were heading blind. We obviously knew we wanted to get students, so we were working on people we knew to see if they could help us out and if they could send students. So there was an element of excitement and an element of danger, if you like, in that sense about it. So we liked that. And what was the second part of the question?
The approach to learning. So
the approach to learning, yes, because teaching while I was over in manufacturing had always been very much the conventional teaching. So we had, and I think one gets used to it. You stand at the front, and you're armed with a pack of slides, and you're comfortable, because if you lose your place, as I've just demonstrated is quite easily done, you can pick it up and you can follow on by picking up where the slides are, and it helps you out. What is different about MKU is we almost exclusively use problem-based learning, and that can go in any direction, and that is the challenge, but also the exciting part of it.
So for those who may not be familiar with problem-based learning, what is problem-based learning and how does it differ in terms of the application when you get into a classroom?
Okay. Well, problem-based learning is really where you set an open-ended question. Usually it's a complex real-world type problem that you would set at the beginning. So rather than conventional teaching would present a series of facts that you want to convey to your students, what you do with problem-based learning is set them a scenario, if you like, where they will use that scenario to gain those same facts, but to use the complex based nature of the problem to do their learning.
Okay, excellent. So thinking about that, we are now just coming up to about a year of having degree apprenticeships at MKU, and degree apprentices actually in the building being taught. How did you find the first students? How has the experience been for you over that first year?
It's been really good, and we've had quite a we've actually done 4 cohorts in this year, so that's quite a lot. We wanted to gear ourselves to what the market wanted. We're very conscious that apprenticeships is an employer-led initiative, and we wanted to really respond to what is important to industry. So we started off with the topic I teach is a level 4 topic. And it's meant to be able to cater for people who are just coming out of school, or perhaps people later in their career who are either changing or acknowledge that maybe they missed the opportunity to do a degree when they were younger. So what we try to do is to allow that transition to happen as painlessly as possible, and to make sure that people have the time and can adapt to the new style of learning, because nearly all of the people that we're teaching have not done problem-based learning before. So to understand what is required of them, getting them used to doing assignments again, getting them used to doing research, talking about referencing. So all the things that come naturally when we're talking about education, but bringing people from not having to do that to being competent at it within that first module. So that's our aim within that first module. And we've had quite a diverse range of people from industry. So we've had one cohort where they were 18 to 20 years of age. So they were all just leaving school. And that was quite interesting, because, as you know, over at Cranfield, we are working to more mature students. They've all done a first degree, and they're doing the masters. Where here it's their first, just leaving school. So, and in fairness to them, some of them have been through rather a strange time, because with COVID, they weren't necessarily going into the classrooms, and I think they didn't get the sixth form transition that they would normally get into university life. So we had to accommodate that as well, and we had to make sure that they could develop and create the right environment for them to be interested, to be active, and to want to learn. So we do that. But we've also had the other side of the spectrum, where we've had more mature people who are regional managers in their own right, who have teams of people working for them, who have followed an education route, but not, if you like, a conventional degree type route. So again, it's been very interesting in how you transition those people and make sure that they are, again, looking at understanding what we're looking at, not just from an education and an academic rigor type route, but what we're looking for from an apprenticeship route, and how apprenticeships interact with universities and what we offer in terms of training.
And how do you feel your past experience in industry has really supported your ability to interact with those different, that diverse range of students?
I think 40 odd years in industry gives you lots of stories that you can relate back to, and that many of them are just starting to experience now. So to be able to talk to them, I think really helps, be able to relay or have empathy with them in terms of the types of situations that they're facing or have faced. I think really helps, and I think I can use industry-based scenarios to a great deal, because that's what I've spent most of my life doing.
Excellent. And then the other thing, on top of the problem-based learning, on top of the degree apprenticeships, we've also been really pioneering in the space of hybrid teaching. Would you like to give a bit of a comment about how hybrid teaching in MKU is innovative in the sector, and sort of what new things we're doing in that space and how you found it?
I think we're very fortunate at MKU. We've got some wonderful kit, to be absolutely honest. And so we've had classrooms where we've had half the classroom actually in the room and the other half online. And the technology is such, we're looking at huge screens, and we can put the students actually on the screens. And when we're actually, so it's like having everybody in the room, and you try and make it as close as you possibly can to as if everybody was in the room. But everybody joins in, everybody can talk, and I think that's the thing that we're very conscious of, because people can speak up in the room and they can be heard online, and vice versa. So it works very well. And I don't know if we're trying to say that it replicates or replaces face-to-face teaching, but it is very good, and it's responding to a need that industry has given us.
And on that note, how have the employers found that ability to use hybrid teaching? Have they reacted well to it?
Industry has really taken to it. Industry like it for a number of different reasons. There's one company who are very keen on it because they've got students literally all over the country, at different sites all over the country. And you can imagine, to get all of them into one site on any given day, it isn't just a logistical problem, but it's also a cost attached to that. And I think that's what people have to be aware of. So for them being able to say, well, we'll do, and we refer to it as bookends. We talk about doing a few days at the beginning, a few days at the end, and then the rest of the time is online. But what we're trying to do is to say that by following that and adopting that bookends, the employers like it, because one, they can cater for it and they can do the short bookends, but at the same time it is a lot less cost.
And then from a sort of perspective, now we've had them in for a while, now they've started to settle in, have you seen anything in terms of output that's different to your traditional students? Admittedly, you've been looking at postgraduate students previously. How has the quality of work come through? How have they adapted to it?
I think what I've liked is that how they've got engrossed in it, how they've really adapted and felt, and you feel that they're actually part of the learning experience, because problem-based learning is very collaborative. They work in groups, so they're working in teams together. But I think the facilitator or the teacher, whatever you want to call the person, joins in as well. It is very collaborative with them. And when one of the students could come in one day and said, I was talking to the other women when they were dropping our kids off the other day at school about autonomous vehicles, I thought, this is it. We've grabbed people. We've got them interested in the topic. They're not just talking about it in the classroom. They're bringing it up at home or with their friends. And I think that was an eye-opening moment for me, and I really appreciated that.
And how have you found that interaction with undergraduate students, particularly on some of the younger ones? Because I know you've become very popular within the MKU team, and I think the students have been saying some very positive things, in some case leaving messages around the building in support of how much they enjoy your teaching. So how have you found that experience with them? And
yeah, I think it's the fact that they see, they see you less as somebody stood at the front giving them instructions, and you see it's somebody who's working with them. And I think somebody who's prepared to just say, you've got to work that out yourself. If you're struggling, then let's work together and let's see how we can work it out. And I think they understand that, and they recognise that it's not just me, that there is lots of people at MKU who are only too willing to help them. You know, people, if they don't understand something, and there's no two people who are the same. So we will go out of our way just to help them and get them over whatever hurdle they're facing. And I think they appreciate that. And I think that's why we get the good feedback, and that's why they're happy.
Excellent. And from a degree apprenticeship side, do you think because they are in work, do you think they tend to be a bit of a mature group in terms of how they approach education, how they're willing to ask for support, or do you think it's the same as your sort of standard postgraduate offering?
I think that's a difficult one to generalise on, because, as I said, there's no two people the same. But I think they recognise that they have, when you're doing an apprenticeship, I think people look back and think of their degrees and think, well, I did my degree. But now these guys are holding down a job and doing a degree and doing other training, because it's all part of their apprenticeship. And that is quite a task that they've got to do. And I think they recognise that, you know, if there are people there who are offering to help, whether that's in the workplace or at the university, then they should take it, because that's what they need to do.
Okay, brilliant. And then thinking about, as you touched on, someone mentioning autonomous vehicles and that being a discussion that's with the students. I don't think a lot of people know what are the sort of things we even start to talk about in MKU. And what's some of the subjects we cover. So it'd be really good to get an insight into what we're talking to the students about.
Well, we cover a number of things. That, like the module I cover is the digital world. And we try to bring out facets of the digital world, but in interesting topics. So rather than just do a cold topic and present data on it, we start off. So we might talk about, if we're looking at some of the technology that is used in autonomous vehicles, but we wouldn't necessarily just take the autonomous vehicles, because we might look at the societal impact of what autonomous vehicles bring. So we may then go on and look at how the impact of, are the roads ready? Is the infrastructure ready to accommodate autonomous vehicles? So we'll look at that. We look at space, because that's a good example of innovation, and we can start talking about the innovation necessary not just to put as many satellites as we are doing up in space, but how we can get to the moon and use that as a staging post to get to Mars, which is what the NASA Artemis project is actually doing. So we bring we bring in the IoT, we bring in wearables. So these are all things that people are familiar with to an extent, but as I said right at the beginning, people can go off in different directions on any of these topics, and we can, to a degree, keep them on track to keep it in line with digital, but we can, I think it makes the learning more interesting and it gets them more involved, and it seems to work.
Brilliant. So looking at MKU as a whole, it'd be great to think about how regularly MKU engages the business community as well as the students. And I know with your experience in industry, you've got a lot of contacts, you've got a lot of key people you're talking to. It'd be great to get some insight into how business is engaging with MKU and sort of how they can start to engage with the student side and the teaching side.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really important point, and I said earlier about apprenticeships being, an employer initiative. And I remember one of the senior people at BAE Systems many years ago saying to me that when people started from university, whether that's at postgraduate level or at undergraduate level, they found that they needed a lot of training just to get them used to industrialize them, is the phrase he used. And it was really to get them used to working in industry. And that meant working collaboratively, working with other people, learning how to do things, listening to instructions. Some of the softer skills that we actually take for granted perhaps when we get a bit older, but there is a learning exercise to that involved. And I think what we try to do then is not forget how important that is to industry. So we revisit and we go back to industry and we invite them to come and do guest lectures. So most of our sessions, we try and do a guest lecture where we will get somebody from industry, ideally talking about the topic we're relevant. So whether that be space or whether that be industry or whether it's Internet of Things, but we'll get people in just to talk about that from an industry perspective. So, and I think the students react to that really well, and they see that this isn't just about learning. There is an end point to this. There is a real meaning behind why we're doing what we're doing.
Excellent. And then talking a bit about the future of MKU, just to finish up, what do you see as the next steps for MKU? What do you see as the potential future? And what would you like MKU to look like going forward?
I hope I share the same dream as the rest of the people at MKU, but I'd love us to move into our own custom made, and I know that the architects have designed it. We've got the building plot, we're just waiting for some money. That's all it takes, and I think that will be the catalyst for it just to explode to greatness, because I think once we've got that, it'll be wonderful. I think where we are, we're very lucky and we've got some great kit. But I just see it growing. I see the way that Milton Keynes as a city is growing. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the UK, and I think that we've got to be there to respond to the industry, certainly within Milton Keynes and the surrounding areas, but also nationally we can do it as well. And I think that's where we all make a name for ourselves. I think our different approach to learning is more industry relevant. I think it prepares people better for industry, and I'm confident that we can do it. We just need the money.
Well, I think on that's a lovely point to wrap up. So thank you very much for joining me, Matthew, and we will speak to you next time.